Richard Wright by Carson Brunk. Harlem Renaissance. 1920 was the start of a movement known as the Harlem Renaissance. What caused this movement, you might ask? A large movement of African American writers and poets in all sorts of different professions, which led to the advancement of people in the Harlem communities. Influencers like Richard Wright, Langston Hughes, and many others contributed to this historic movement to spread knowledge and art to the world. Richard Wright was a novelist who wrote many stories like Native Son and Black Boy, which brought him to fame during the Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem Renaissance brought a new wave of literature from new minds to the rest of the nation. The early life of Richard Wright. He was born in Natchez, Mississippi on September 4th, 1908. He moved around when he was young and eventually started writing through the Federal Writers Project in 1930. Actually, many people don't really know this, but he was a member of the Communist Party and became an editor for the Communist Daily Worker. His writing career started with a novel known as Uncle Tom's Children in 1938, which highlighted the hardships Black people faced in the nation of the United States, which didn't really accept them at the time. Often in his stories, the protagonist dies, and this brought sort of a dark and gloomy feeling to all of his stories, which some people either loved or hated. He was known to write in a very realist style, and many of his works included sex, racism, and many other problems facing the world he lived in, like drugs and things along that line. In 1940, he wrote Native Son, and in 1945, he wrote Black Boy, which were two of his probably most popular works. His later life consisted of, in 1944, he left the Communist Party for political and personal differences. And then after World War II, he moved to Paris, continuing to write stories such as The Outsider in 1953 and White Man Listen in 1957. Many writings were not well received by the public, and he had many clashings with people who didn't want to publish his works because of the sort of gruesomeness and the real way that he sort of spoke and or wrote, I guess. He passed away in 1960 at the age of 52 due to a heart attack. After death in 1977, there was a posthumous autobiography published titled American Hunger. Some works that initially were hidden from the public, like Rite of Passage and A Father's Law, were finally published in 1994, and in 2008 for Father's Law, finally being able to be adjusted so that they can be presented to the public. Some works by Richard Wright. First one is Black Boy, where Wright describes his youth in the South, or Mississippi, Arkansas, and Tennessee, and eventually moving to Chicago, where he establishes his writing career and becomes involved in the Communist Party. This story was also pretty real. Even though it was based on his life, he did not leave anything out, to say the least. Another work that was very popular by him was Native Son. which was about a 20-year-old man named Bigger Thomas, who was a black youth living in a very poor area in Chicago, and just lived in poverty for most of his life. And during his life, Bigger commits a few crimes, and is very harshly accused and is put through a really harsh sort of situation, even though his crimes maybe didn't so much match the punishment. These are my sources. And this is my second source, or second slide of sources, I guess. All right, I hope you enjoyed this slide or this presentation. I really think that many people should learn about Richard Wright's life because just like a lot of Harlem Renaissance influencers, he had a hard life growing up, but really thought it was important to really show people the real side of, people's lives and the things that they were going through at the time, which was really hard for many people all across the nation that were, African American and just really weren't accepted by many people. And I think his literature really displayed that for many people to see, which that's how it was with a lot of people. So I really think that we should remember a lot of these people from the Harlem Renaissance era, because I do think they changed our world dramatically and for the better. And thank you.